This story begins with John, a tough guy who is dedicated to intimidating and beating up people who have done something wrong. Since he never knew his father, this makes him a suspicious guy. And suddenly, a man enters his apartment and a punch knocks him flying. He grabs a crystal to cut her neck, but a mysterious young woman takes it from him and says she has a special task for him. She explains that tomorrow she is getting married, and he has to rescue her from her wedding. John, against his will, agrees, and at the wedding, everyone is celebrating when he shows up driving in and leaves the wedding, impressing all the guests. Then John takes off his helmet and tells the girl that he loves her, asking her to come with him. But what she didn't expect is that her husband is a mafia boss who promises to follow him until the day he dies if he steals his girlfriend. So John hits him on the head with the helmet. He even knocks out a tooth. Then he grabs the girlfriend and makes her get on his motorcycle. They escape from the gangsters' henchmen, throwing them all in front of them. He even starts kicking them away, and although he destroys the whole place, he manages to escape. There, the girlfriend thanks him because the mission was a success. But suddenly, he becomes dizzy, causing him to lose control of the motorcycle and veer into a truck, but he falls off a cliff. They take him to the hospital where the doctor says he needs to have a very serious talk with him and tells him. He explains that he had a very severe concussion and they found a tumor in his brain. This means that John is dying, and he asks if there's anything that can save him, to which the doctor says it's impossible. When disconnected, he reveals that he only has 3 months to live. This makes him rethink his life, and suddenly, he sees a sad girl named Mai who has the same pain as him. Upon investigating her, he discovers that the doctor told her she couldn't get pregnant due to menopause and sleep. She ruined being a mother, so he follows her to a funeral where she cries with all her strength, and suddenly, a woman with a baby sits next to her and lets her hold the baby. However, her son starts crying, and the mother tries to take him. But now, Millie doesn't want to give him to her. She struggles to keep him in her arms, causing a commotion. When they take him away, she begs them to give her a baby, please. Then, when I leave, I give her an umbrella, and she tries to see who's such a nice guy, but she can't see, and she looks at him so much that John's brain connects with Mi's, and he sees a life with her in which they meet, fall in love, and even do the delicious thing that makes him see that he wasted his life and goes to look for me. She's with the family of her fiancé, and she's afraid they'll find out she can't get pregnant. So she puts on a fake belly, and to her surprise, her mother-in-law enters the room and discovers her. Traitor. Then the servants throw her to the floor and wrap her in blankets. Then she wakes up, and she's afraid that this will happen to her. She packs her bags and quietly crosses the mansion to escape, but at the last moment, she is discovered. The next day, the wedding begins, and the maids help her put on the wedding dress. Although she looks confident, she's really nervous, and suddenly, John appears there. And her face turns serious because it turns out that the two had a relationship several years ago and they were madly in love, so much so that they even thought about marrying and having children. However, John ended up breaking up with her, although now John comes to tell her to run away with him. Then, Millie slaps him and says she's pregnant, but he's unyielding. She knows the secret that she can't have children and threatens to tell her husband's family if she doesn't go with him. Then the fiancé enters, and the truth is, it seems strange to him that she's alone with a guy. She lies, saying he's her half-brother, whom she met at the orphanage, and he takes advantage of the moment to touch her, pretending to be her brother. No, she speaks to him in good humor, and John behaves friendly on the outside, but we see that she wipes her hand after touching him and laughs at the age difference between them, as she is 12 years older than her. Mir responds that he shouldn't be rude, and she's afraid he'll ruin her life. So she invents that he has an important meeting he must attend. Then she kicks him out of the cabin and tells him that a 44-year-old man is not appropriate for her. She replies that she doesn't care because he comes from a rich family and loves her very much. However, he doesn't think leaving is a solution. He picks her up in his arms and accidentally hits her head, knocking her unconscious. It becomes easier for John to take her away, and then her fiancé notices some of her clothes on the floor and finds out that his beloved was kidnapped by John, who quietly welcomes her into his car. Suddenly, he receives a call from his friend because the mafia boss, whose wedding he ruined, wants revenge. He hangs up the phone before finding him, and the mafia boss threatens to kill his friend if he doesn't find John, who sees her running and chases her in the car. He tells her to get up, so she changes direction and falls into a muddy pit full of water, making it hard for her to walk properly, and they both keep stumbling. John finally manages to catch up to her, and she fights with him, releasing all the hate she has for him. She says that he ruined her life because she truly loved him until he decided to break up with her. John feels guilty and hugs her to make her feel better, and in her eyes, he sees a second chance to love her before he dies. On the way, he gives her his jacket when she sees it wet and accidentally notices John's phone in his pocket. She tries to call the police to rescue her but can't unlock it, and she starts to lose hope of escaping until she sees a gas station. She runs away. She enters the bathroom and locks herself in, then takes the opportunity to jump out of the window and climb over the wall, but she realizes that someone is touching her. And John finds her and forces her back into the car, showing that she doesn't think she can escape no matter how much she tries. He proclaims himself her love kidnapper, and when they enter a town, she escapes from the car and begins to wander around, shouting that she was kidnapped, only to realize that there's no one around. It seems that no matter how much she tries to escape, their fates are bound together. So he lets her change clothes and looks at her closely, not stopping from staring at her body, and at night, they go to a hotel to rent a room. They realize they don't have money, but the hotel manager thinks they are married, and this excites him. So he lets them have a vacant room. Although the only bad thing is that they have to sleep on the floor, John takes advantage of this to get closer to her, and he sees that they haven't slept together for 3 years, to which she immediately rejects him, as she still holds a strong grudge against him. Then, in the middle of the night, he gets up with the intention to escape, but he only hears John saying his name during his sleep and asking him not to. Please leave him alone, which makes it very hard for her to separate from him, and he simply wakes up and throws her into bed. What he doesn't realize is that he puts her in bed because he knows she tried to escape. She tells him to leave, and he's too far gone to pay attention to her. He even takes pictures with her, smiling while she screams, but that doesn't make her give up, and she tries to escape by pulling the rope, and just when she manages, John comes back and laughs at her. That's why Mei throws a pillow at him, and they both continue to argue, like children. She calls him spoiled, and these words make him remember his childhood, discovering that his father abandoned him when he was young and formed another family. Although at that moment, he met Mai, who helped him. Her red liquid on his hand and her gentle smile made him fall in love at first sight. He decided to chase her until he found out she was a teacher, and he went to her school to talk to her, and they started a relationship that, although it seemed broken, Mai's eyes screamed love, and that's why he keeps trying to make her fall in love. Meanwhile, we see that Mai's fiancé went to the police and explained that his wife had been kidnapped, so they come to his aid in the city where John is. He hears some waiters trying to sell the restaurant to a businessman behind the owner's back, and he, furious, takes justice into his own hands and confronts them. Unfortunately, it doesn't start well because they hit him hard, but he doesn't give up, delivering tremendous blows that show they should respect their superiors. However, they kick him out of the restaurant. Then, the businessman sees a newspaper in which they say they are looking for Mai Yama-jun, and he runs to the restaurant, but he's not the only one. John's friend also teams up with all the gangsters who want to break his face, so June is the one who gets there first, and when she sees him, she calls him. Then John is forced to make her get into his car since June is unconscious, and crosses the street with all the cars at full speed. Then he steals a police car to chase him, while Mai bites his head because she can't drive straight. In the end, he catches up to him and shouts to Mai that he'll save her. John accelerates at full speed, and she strangles him, causing them to almost collide, and they spin on the road until they stop right at the edge of a cliff. But, of course, Jun comes from behind like a maniac, hitting them and making them roll down the hill. John hits his head but makes sure she's fine, and fortunately, they can continue walking. And of course, soon, John grabs a stun gun from the police car and threatens to shoot him. He uses Millie as a human shield and tells him to throw the gun on the ground, but John doesn't pay attention to him because he knows that having the gun is his chance to escape. For his fiancée, he gets nervous and accidentally pulls the trigger, discovering that it doesn't work, so he takes the opportunity to flee. When he accidentally shoots again, he shoots himself, ending up looking like a broken lamp. Then, Millie blames John for everything bad that happened to him in his life, and suddenly, he becomes dizzy due to the tumor in his head and falls to the ground as well. Millie is stuck between them, not knowing what to do or who to save. Finally, she hides John and calls the police, who take him away. Her fiancé is arrested for stealing the police car. There, she meets all the gangsters who are chasing John, and they join forces to find him, while John wakes up and sees her sitting by a river, where she holds his hand as thanks for saving him. But while she cries, She replies that she wishes he were dead because it seems his life came to make her suffer. Then he listens to her and accepts that when he dies, he will leave her in peace, but until then, he makes her understand that he doesn't intend to leave her side. Looking into her eyes, he says to her, "You are mine." The tension between the two is huge, and suddenly, she throws him into the river and runs to the city, where she calls the police to rescue her. Only then does John appear behind her and make her strangle him at the restaurant. He looks at her chest and she throws water at him, but the reason he looked at her there is because she had food on her dress and she feels bad. Then, John asks why her pregnancy is so important, and she says her husband is an only child of his family and she needs an heir to continue his dynasty. John says that with that mentality, their marriage wouldn't be based on love, and she reveals that her love wore out when he broke her heart. He does everything to mend her wounded heart and treats her like a princess on the train. She sees a baby, and this makes her happy, and he remembers the memories of his father, which make him dizzy with pain. He runs to the bathroom, where he tries to have a drink, but they fall to the ground, and his head hurts more and more. In the end, he manages to hold on, pretending to Millie that he's fine, even though inside he's suffering a lot. He reveals that the goal of his trip now is to find his real father, because the man who abandoned him turned out to be his stepfather, and he doesn't know his real father. Mai promises to help him, while also trying to restore her relationship with John, who buys her some sneakers she couldn't afford to pay for, and John looks at her with so much love, showing that he still loves her. After that, they go up the mountain where her father could be, and suddenly, she sees a snake and gets scared, thinking that John is going to hit her. Faster than a rabbit chasing a carrot, he rushes after her until they reach a farmer's house, who decides to take them in. Then the farmer dances with Millie, while John looks at them with jealousy. They become closer and closer, and he decides to stop the music and gives her murderous looks, proving that she is his love. In truth, Mai is happy that he is so protective of her. Days go by, and their relationship continues to improve to the point that they seem like a couple. Then the farmer goes with John to the port and protects him from some dangerous thugs due to a misunderstanding, and for the first time, John feels the pain of a real father. Then, by chance, she discovers that the gangsters are after her. And since she has no way out, she pretends to be an old woman with back problems, speaking in an old woman's voice, and tells them no. However, they end up seeing her face and realize she is the girl John kidnapped. So she throws vegetables in their faces and starts running. The gangsters chase her through the forest, and Millie throws pine cones at them and hits them with a stick, making them fall to the ground. Then she gets home, where John warns her that they have to flee, but when she looks in her backpack, she discovers that the farmer has stolen all their money. She decides to confront the farmer so he can return the money. He's involved in an illegal game where he fights all the thugs and even gets to the farmer, who threatens to kill him. The farmer says he was thinking about returning the money, but of course, John doesn't believe him. Suddenly, he manages to get the money. The result of the DNA test is revealed, and it turns out the farmer is not his father. The man laughs and reveals that he knew he wasn't his father because he would never have a son as much of a loser as him. John thinks about fighting him, but he gives him a tremendous beating that he deserves, making him understand that no one hurts his loved ones. She says that he doesn't deserve such a bad father, and when they are about to leave, the farmer reveals the truth about his illness. Furious, John hits him hard enough to almost kill him, and Millie hugs him, trying to make him see reason. She explains that just because he doesn't have a father doesn't mean he's a stray in this world. What matters is what you do with the life you have and with the good deeds to help others. However, he's depressed, and to make her leave, he tells her that bad things only happen when he's with her and that he never loved her. She doesn't believe it and refuses to walk away from him until she finds his real father. No matter how much he insults her, she knows deep down that he really loves her. John becomes emotional with her words and gives her a passionate kiss after so many years without touching her lips. When John sees them together, his heart breaks, and unable to control himself, he runs toward them and hits them. John then embraces his beloved, saying that they can finally go back to their old life, and apologizes for abandoning her. She doesn't respond, and John feels guilty, deciding to leave him alone while his heart cries. But he comes running back because of the gangsters. The three of them reach the port, looking for a boat to escape, and they get on one. However, Jun tries to break the rope that ties him, and the gang surrounds them, throwing a knife at Jun. A mysterious man manages to stop them before they kill him. This man fights with the gangsters while Jun finishes breaking the rope. John starts the boat, rushes toward them and jumps into the sea, but he doesn't know how to swim and starts drowning. It seems like everything is lost when a mysterious hand saves him. He wakes up thinking it was her. When he sees her face, he kisses her, but it turns out she's kissing John's foot. He becomes very disgusted and then takes Millie away, giving her a kiss and a hug, letting her know that he loves her and saying that he doesn't care. They may not have a child, but he will still love her. Then, John feels bad for interrupting their romantic moment, but reveals that they are on a deserted island, with no way to escape. John panics because he doesn't know if they'll be able to eat anything, and he discovers that there is no shelter and no boat nearby. So they decide to help each other escape. Although they quickly fight over Millie's love, John tells her that their relationship is over, and now Millie belongs to him. John is unable to accept this and angrily imagines what he will do. She kills him with a stick, and they fight like children. Millie, completely fed up, calls them immature and orders them to stop. They then cook the octopus she caught and behave like good children to win Millie's heart. Then, John pretends that they hurt her hands so she could feed him, making John jealous. To make matters worse, he wipes food off Millie's lips. John really can't take it anymore and laughs with her because they can't hide their love, not even if they try. This kills John inside, while John feels dizzy as he walks. Un finds him and notices that he's bleeding from his nose. John reveals to him that he only has 2 months to live, and no pill can save him. Un is affected by this and, above all, understands that Millie won't handle it if he dies. When she finds out, she'll be depressed because of it. She tells him not to reveal it to her and to stay away from her life if he truly loves her. These words convince John, and he meets with Millie, telling her that he hates her and never wants to see her again. John hurts her deeply, and when he leaves, he remembers their good times together when his heart shone as brightly as the sun because being with her is a blessing from the sky. He regrets his words and actions, and when he goes to apologize, the mafioso discovers him and fights with him. John defends himself evasively, then throws a piece of wood at the mafioso, which makes him sick. When they run toward him, the two end up jumping in the air, and the mafioso hits his head on a rock. John thinks he has won and is crawling along the beach when suddenly the gangster surprises him from behind and keeps hitting him. John feels tired and is ready to die. The gangster raises the knife, and at that moment, Millie appears to him. She hits his head with a rock, saving her lover. The three of them fight together against the gangster and finally defeat him, but then they realize that Millie has a knife stabbed in her stomach. John can't believe it and starts crying. Millie's soul is leaving her body, and luckily, a police boat appears and takes her to the hospital, where they perform surgery to stitch her stomach. In the following days, she survives connected to some devices, and June stays by her side while John can't drink or eat because he feels guilty about what happened. He then sleeps holding Millie's shoe and gets angry when a girl tries to take it from him. She throws millions of shoes at his face. After that, Millie feels better, and when she returns home, her mother-in-law finds out about her pregnancy. She tells her to abandon the child because he is the heir to the family, and without a child, their dynasty will end. For Jun's sake, she lets him go and goes to John's house. But when she arrives, she sees him with a girl and thinks he's cheating on her. He explains to her that he's not what he seems. He's kissing her. The reality is that Millie is biting his nose, and he's dying of pain. Additionally, she climbs on top of John to hold herself better, and they fight a lot, with her seeming like a cat in heat. John almost has no neurons left, and after destroying the house, the girl forces them to stop. Then she reveals that she owns the house and that there is no romantic relationship between John and her, although the landlady confesses that it wasn't because she didn't want to, but because John's heart is reserved for another girl named Millie. She apologizes for destroying the house and tells John to complete his mission of finding his true father. He rejects her and puts her in a taxi, sending her away, but she gets out and throws a shoe at him, showing him that their souls are united, and even though he tries to push her away, the thread of destiny will always bind them. John responds that bad things always happen to her, and he says that because he doesn't want her to see him die. He walks in the opposite direction while Millie's heart breaks. In reality, John is just as sad and suddenly remembers how much he loves her, realizing that she is the great light of his life. So, he starts looking for her and finds her in her old house, where Millie, upon seeing him, feels like the sky is opening again. John approaches her, crying, and explains that he's actually afraid of losing her. They love each other wildly, and finally, they kiss with the fervor of an eternal fire. He even takes off his shirt so she can better touch his muscles, and they keep kissing until their lips wear out. Then she decides to stay at his house for a few days, cooks for him, and their relationship turns into dating. John organizes a surprise birthday party for Millie and gives her a rusty ring as a gift, which seems ugly but ends up being the same ring she had when they were together, the one with which they became engaged, an eternal love. Before they separated, she threw it away and kept it for years in her aquarium until the moment when she joins hands with immense joy, knowing that their love is unstoppable. But this changes when she goes to a bar with her friend. Her head starts to tighten, and her friend doesn't understand what happened because he doesn't know about her condition. He helps her, and John curses the disease that reminds him he has very little time left to live, and now that he started his relationship with Millie, it hurts even more to die. For this reason, in front of Millie, he pretends to be happy by giving her a sensual dance. Although inside, he cries. The two then come up with a plan to find his real father and attend an event where a famous businessman, whom they suspect is his father, is present. But suddenly, he feels dizzy and can't see anything, while Millie gets past the bodyguards to reach the businessman and tries to grab a strand of his hair to get his DNA and confirm if he is her father. However, the man wears a wig, and she feels embarrassed. She then discovers John collapsed on the floor, unconscious. When she moves toward him, the bodyguards try to stop her, but the strength of love is so powerful that she breaks free from them and manages to take him to the hospital. There, she learns that John has a brain tumor, and the doctor explains to her that he has only a few days left to live. Unfortunately, this disease is unstoppable, and now she understands all the conversations about death that they had together. Therefore, the only thing John wanted before dying was to meet his father. While he fights for his life in the hospital, she searches for his father, and to do so, she manages to get the businessman's address. She forces the car to stop, then approaches him, fighting against everyone. Although she manages to take off his wig, she gets a strand of his hair to obtain his DNA. However, at the hospital, she doesn't see John in his bed and fears that he has died. She finds out that they performed brain surgery on him because he was about to die, and she sneaks into his room. Even though he's very ill, she lies next to him and imagines that John wakes up and tells her he loves her. Then, in the result of the DNA test, she finds out that the millionaire is not John's father, and she feels frustrated because she was hoping to fulfill his last wish, but she couldn't. He doesn't want to allow his last days to be spent dying in a hospital, so, to keep anyone from seeing him, he places him in a sheet bag and takes him out of the hospital. He calls a cab, but the driver thinks he's carrying a dead person and refuses to let him in. Left there, not knowing what to do, Millie's life becomes depressing. Suddenly, John wakes up, and she touches him to make sure she isn't dreaming. When she sees that it's real, she fills his face with kisses, and her head starts to ache from kissing him so much. Then they begin to walk, and he says that he won't die until he meets his real father. They investigate and discover a man who could be his father, but he's in another city. Before the trip, John says goodbye to his friend, leaving behind his company and part of his money. His friend gives him a hug while crying, and he says that he loves him too and will miss him very much. Then, he goes with Millie to search for his father, and during the trip, the two argue and have fun at the same time. For his last days of life, they decide to buy stylish clothes, and they look so cute together that they take photos to celebrate their love. Then, he takes a photo of her alone, and seeing her so smiley, he can't help but cry because he knows these moments will be his last with her, and her beauty surprises him. That night, he tells her to think of him every time she looks at the sky, and then pretends that his head hurts. She gets scared, and he says that he needs a kiss to feel better. She angrily refuses, but quickly becomes upset and kisses him, sticking her tongue down his throat. In a house where the man might be his father, when she leaves, John seizes the chance to leave in the car. She reacts by chasing after him but can't catch him, and ends up crying in the middle of the road, feeling lost. It turns out that John doesn't want her to see him dying and prefers for her to remember him as a strong and smiling guy before the disease physically destroys him. Suddenly, he shows up beside her, comforts her, and takes her to lunch at a restaurant where he doesn't have the strength to eat. He asks her to tell him her biggest secret, and she reveals the truth about her father. We learn that when he was a child, he came from a happy family, but one day his mother found out that the clinic that had inseminated her artificially had used sperm from someone else, not her husband's. Saddened, she turned to pills, and her husband eventually discovered he wasn't John's father. Unable to bear the fact that he didn't have a child because of this, their marriage became unhappy, and his mother threw herself into a depression, eventually driving her car into a lake, drowning to death, just as the police had reported. Since then, his father distanced himself from his son and eventually abandoned him. Now, John is searching for his real father, the one he never met. Jun understands his pain, and John realizes that Jun is actually a good man, and they become friends. However, his girlfriend and mother find out about them and grab them by the neck, so they can't escape again. Millie is angry for being abandoned and thinks she's going to hit him. He expresses his feelings and tells her that he loves her as he did before. In reality, she teaches the girl that the promise is that in life or in death, they will stay together, and he starts to cry, saying that she wins against his will. They go to eat with friends, sharing their secrets with each other, but of course, happiness is short-lived because the dizziness returns to his head. He leaves the house so no one will see him, walking aimlessly down the street in great pain. It's a wonder he doesn't suffer an accident when his beloved finds him, but even she can't control him. He then takes a taxi to the old father's house, and when he sees him, he doesn't know what to say. The first thing John does is hug him. He and his father understand that he is his son, and he becomes emotional as he remembers his childhood memories. Then, he apologizes for abandoning him and lets him into his childhood home, where he discovers that it's full of pictures of him as a child. He also has videos of him from when he was young, his graduation folder, which he thought he had gone to alone, but it turns out his father was always spying on him to make sure he was okay. He knows he will always be guilty for not having been a good father, but the future of his son makes him happy. Millie is happy to see him well and says that she wants to kidnap him, just as he did with her. John allows himself to be kidnapped, and before that, he leaves a letter for his stepfather in which he says he is his real father because he doesn't care who the sperm donor was, but rather who raised him. He decides to forgive him after that. John focuses on his last days of life with Mila, and they have romantic encounters to make up for the 3 years they were apart. They celebrate his birthday, make each other laugh, drink, take photos of all their activities and the kisses they share so that she will always remember how much they loved each other. She takes him to a snow-covered mountain, and the place seems so beautiful to them that, unexpectedly, Millie throws snow at his head, and he chases her. They ride a sled, having fun like love-struck teenagers. They're at their best, and John spots a 4-leaf clover, which means good luck. But suddenly, he starts bleeding from his nose, and he instantly falls to the ground. She runs toward him as he shouts her name at the top of his lungs, fighting to keep his eyes open because he wants to live and, above all, see her one last time before his heart stops. Then she finally arrives, crying, and he wipes away her tears and smiles, saying she is the last person he will see alive. They both say they love each other, and he remembers all the kisses they shared in their love story, which seems as though death will separate them. However, it is not the case, as they continue the joyful moments they had together because, even though John's body turns to ashes, the best part of him will always survive in the depths of Millie's soul. His love will be in every step she takes in her life. When she looks at the sky, she knows that John is watching over her because he will be her breath on the sad days and her smiles on the happy days. Above all, he will be the ship that rules her heart until the end of her days because, no matter how much she loves, he is and always will be her first love. And well, if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. I also leave here more videos that I'm sure you'll love.
See you next time.